Hi, everybody. I'm Lori Glorick, and today we're going to share a little bit about Faith Unleashed's journey with Good Shepherd Lutheran Church as we work together to create a member ministry system in their church family. So, today I'd like to introduce to you Pastor Bob Hine and Member Ministry Coordinator Kathy Moldenhauser. And I'm going to let you guys actually do the introduction. So, Pastor, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yes, Pastor Bob Hine. I serve at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in West Bend. Been here just over 17 years. Just to give you a little background, we're of a church of over 1,200 members. We have a multiple staff of pastors. We have a Christian elementary school from preschool to eighth grade. We have a Little Lambs childcare ministry. So there's a lot going on at Good Shepherd. I'm married. I have three children. I've enjoyed learning more about this ministry to get more people involved.
Fabulous. All right, Kath, tell us your story.
Hi, I'm Kathy Moldenhauer. I'm a personal member ministry coordinator here at Good Shepherd. I've been doing that for 3 years. I'm married and I have two children who attend school here.
Thanks, Kath. Yeah, so as we think about this, we started our journey together back in September of 2021. So, Bob, I'm just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what you were experiencing at Good Shepherd or feeling, and how you first identified the need for something different to engage people in meaningful ministry.
Yeah, and when I meet with new members, I always say I don't want people just to be a name and a number. I want to get to know people. I want to make connections and like to get people involved. And I think some of you have heard this statistic that if a new member is not involved, not connected, after 6 months, a lot of times they become inactive. And we want to make sure that everyone has a role to play here, that they're connected to Christ and they're connected to one another. So I think this has been a real interest. How can we get more members involved? How can we delegate? How can we use their gifts? It really started, we were doing a building expansion project. And this was about 7 years ago. And we brought in a consultant, Jeff Davis, who worked with us. And we didn't want to just build buildings, we wanted to do ministry. And he helped us to say, what are our ministry priorities? And we came up with some goals that we wanted to do over the next 3 years. And it's kind of interesting to look back at that. I want to share some that are pertinent to our discussion today. We wanted to revise our church structure to increase involvement and ownership from all the members of the church, male and female, young and old. And so we changed the way we did our bylaws and our structure to have more coordinators, ministry teams, men and women serving together. We follow all the biblical callings for role of men and women. We have our leadership structure, but we wanted to get more and more people involved. And a big changeover here was instead of leaders doing all the ministry, they were helping to equip and plan and get more people involved in ministry. So that was one of our goals. Another goal was to initiate a congregation-wide member ministry effort to help God's people discover their strengths and link them to service. And then develop a system to train and prepare church leaders and volunteers for service. So we identified these were our needs. And then we said, how are we going to answer those needs? And I learned about Lori and Faith Unleashed. And I'm trying to think of the different ways. I maybe heard of you through the grapevine. I checked out your website and downloaded some of your materials. At some point back in 2020, I believe I attended some kind of a workshop at a church. I can't remember which one it was, but learn more about it. And then the next step is I talked to Lori, and you were gracious enough to do just a little consulting weekend workshop where we could find out more. And we had some of our leaders, I think it was a Zoom meeting that we did, but it was a way that some of our leaders could try it out a little bit, find out what this was all about. So that's really how we got started.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I love those early memories as I think back to it. I feel like we've become friends over the years.
Yeah, yeah.
I know you, you know me, and so as you think a little bit about those early years, and I love that you laid out the path where that it took 7 years, right? Like this started and it was a seed and we wanted to move in this direction. But truly, one of the requirements for working with Faith Unleashed is a paid staff member to oversee the aspects of your member ministry program. And I often refer to this person like as the HR coordinator of your congregation, who's helping to manage the human resources. So tell us how you went about budgeting for not only Faith Unleashed's consulting fee, but also adding additional staff.
I think it was the way we developed this is, again, the leaders identified we had this need, and then we were able to kind of test it out. Because I understand some of the people listening to this seminar are interested. Should we try this at our church? Okay, you let us kind of try it out. We got to find out the benefits and how it worked. And we learned about your personal example at Trinity in Crete, you working together with Pastor Italiano. And so I guess the leaders were convinced of the benefit of the program and the ministry and the benefit of having someone on staff to help us oversee and coordinate this. So I guess we saw it from a living example. And then when I talked to some people about it, I believe we had one special gift that I talked to someone about just to get us started. And then after people went through the process, they saw the value and said, yeah, we believe this is going to be a benefit. And I guess it helps me personally too, that I need to delegate more. And these are tasks that are important, but maybe I don't have to be right on top of them because I have a personal member ministry coordinator who I can work with to help us get these important things done.
Yeah, I love that you recognize, Bob, and that you shared that, right? I don't have to be the sole solution to everything. There's other people that can own parts of that. So, Kathy, as you think back to your time, and I go back to that September through December part of 2021, talk with our group today a little bit about your training experience. What did that look like? What do you remember?
Yeah. So you have about 12 weeks where you do different projects, and some of them included reading the Constitution and the bylaws, like knowing where to find those things, knowing your vision, your mission, your values. We also had an opportunity to meet with every ministry leader. And so that was really great because you got to learn a little bit more about what like their experiences with serving in the church and why they're passionate about it and where they see the ministry going. You also attend multiply member ministry training, and originally we had both pastors on staff. It was Pastor Hein and Pastor Paustrin at that time, our secretary, myself, and then our other personal member ministry coordinator, Marilyn Sievert. So that was a really great opportunity because we got to learn more about the whole idea of member ministry and learn each piece of what it's about. And then you continue on with like about 18 months of training. You train a core team, so you get other people involved. So it's not just the ministry coordinators, you're training other people to help you along in this process. There's book recommendations, there's conference recommendations. I mean, it's a lot of learning, but I think the beauty in that is you get really intentional about how you're going to take what you've learned and apply it to your congregation so that it can be scalable, so that it can fit each congregation and their mission, their values, what they have already in place. And so it's beautiful what our leaders have done here to set up our structure too, to help us be able to get more men and women involved. And like Pastor Hein said, I think that's one of the key things that they did in the beginning before I even came on. So all of that has helped us a lot. Yeah. And then another thing I will say is I had the blessing of attending the Multiply Member Ministry Workshop 3 times because we have been blessed to add staff, pastoral staff. You know, when we added Pastor Miller, I went through it all again, and so did Marilyn. And then when we added Pastor Schlicht, he and I both were on too. So I really found value in us spending the time to do that. It takes a while, but every time you onboard someone new, I think that's a necessary part, at least for us. I think it just really helped us all be on the same page.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Kathy. So just a couple of things about what you said, so thinking about the scalability of all this is really key, right? So you're a congregation of about 1,200 people, and the Faith Unleashed system is really designed to take the principles and apply it, no matter the size of your church, but take those principles and then create a customized vision and plan for your congregation. So we work with different groups everywhere from mission congregations that are just getting started in year 5 or 6, and we're working with large congregations as well. So thanks for that information. And even that multiple member ministry comment, Kath, I really love that, because I think we always continue to learn. And so during that 12 to 18 month process, my goal is to walk alongside of people so that, we keep the main things, and we get stuff done, which is really key to moving this forward. So Kathy and Bob, maybe you want to even weigh in on this, Bob, after Kath, but we spent a lot of time talking about shifting culture in your church. Can you talk about some of the mindsets and behaviors that had to be adjusted during those early months?
I think one of the things that I saw that's really beneficial is we get our pastors thinking a little bit more about how they don't have to be the sole doers of ministry, that all of us are here to have a part in the body of Christ, and that people can go to a coordinator and not always go to a staff member. And that doesn't just mean PMM coordinator. That could be your coordinator for other areas of ministry. Go directly to the person who is in charge of, VBS or Christmas for Kids or something like that, so that you can get the answer from that person and not always be talking to a staff member. I think that's been a beautiful thing. We've done a lot to create ministry position descriptions. Because of the size of our congregation and the amazing amount of opportunities, we have over 140 ministry position descriptions that are written, and we still could write more, if I'm honest with you. It's like a work in progress. I think like it's scalable. You can write ministry position descriptions for a mission congregation for anywhere, and I think it can be tailored to you and to what you need. We also took a lot of our coordinators through something called developing and enhancing a ministry, which kind of helped explain to them why we're creating ministry position descriptions, how we're going to use them. And then we also talked to them a lot about something called the art of inviting. And all of these are Faith Unleashed resources that Lori has created that help you to be intentional and giving next steps to your leaders and your coordinators, and let them be free to go and help create disciples of all nations. So it's a good thing.
That's exciting. I love the energy when you started talking about the real purpose behind this, right? It's all about sharing Jesus. So Bob, when you think about culture shifts and behaviors that you've seen, change at Good Shepherd, anything that really pops into your mind that it's like, wow, I've really seen this happen?
Yeah, a couple examples. I think words matter, and we have to remind ourselves, but it's not a job. It's not a committee. It's a ministry team, right? It's everything you do. There's a coffee ministry, okay? And I think it builds everybody up that everything you do is glorifying God and serving people. And so just the terminology we use. I think one of the culture changes, and I have to use it again with our change of structure. We used to have a property chairman, and he was on the council, and he pretty much did the property work, right? Now we have a support ministry, and they have coordinators, men and women. There's a aesthetics coordinator, and there's a property coordinator, and there's a landscaping coordinator, and there's a volunteer cleaning coordinator. So now we have leaders who are equipping and training, but they're not doing it all themselves. They've learned to involve more people, and men and women are playing more roles. So we've multiplied ministry. And that's been maybe a change, rather than the leaders having to do it all, to their role of involving more and letting everybody have a piece of ministry. I guess that's a cultural thing we're still working on, but and that's how we talk about people serving. You are in a ministry, whatever that role may be.
Yeah, I love that you went back to that idea of words matter, and how do we start to shift that culture from the mindset of leaders being doers to leaders being developers. So thanks for pulling that out, Bob, because that's really good, right? And that's where the stumbling block is, and what holds so many churches back is that we get stuck in just the doing. Like, I'll just do it myself, it's easier, rather than developing people. And that's what Jesus calls us to do. So, Kathy, as you take a minute here, think about how you've been instrumental in implementing systems into your church's operating structure. What are some of those systems, and how has the congregation benefited from systems?
Sure. Well, like I talked about, we have ministry position descriptions for most of our areas of ministry. We have ministry event review forms. So we have a lot of events that happen here, and we wanted to start to capture, what the event was, what board it falls under, how many people attended, what would you do better the next time, what went really well. And so anytime we have an event, people fill that out. And then that also helps people then at the end of the year to build their action plan, which helps essentially build the budget. Wouldn't you agree, Pastor Hein? And so that is something also that we help with. We help with the action plans as well, just getting them back to people. Like right now, you might be sending them back to people to update them for the next cycle. And all of those things we've created Google Forms for. We have folders for them to try to keep it organized and accessible for all of our ministry leaders. And it just helps a lot with that. Another thing that we've been doing is having processes and procedures for a lot of areas for church, trying to gather information about what goes into putting together maybe specific events, but it could even be what do we need people to know about cleaning up the fellowship hall after they use it, and how are we making a sign for that? Or it could be what goes into making like a funeral meal, because there's a whole team that puts that together. What goes into all of that? Just getting all those things documented and then also stored again on Google, someplace where the ministry leaders have access to it, so that if somebody leaves a ministry or they need to take a break from a ministry, not all of their knowledge is going with them. We can share better about what we're all doing and just be more effective. And also, I think it helps a lot because it gives people, when you invite them to something, you can give them some information about where the ministry has been, so that they kind of know what they're signing up for and agreeing to. Just like the ministry position description helps with that too.
I love that, Kat, right? So you're talking about those ministry position descriptions really provide clarity for people on what you're asking and inviting them to do. It becomes that training tool. So I know what I'm asking them to do, and I've equipped them to do it, right? And then you talked a little bit about the feedback. Like after an event happens, they're providing feedback. Was this good? Was it not good? And so documenting that thing means we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel all the time, which is such a tremendous blessing in our churches, which really allows us to gain that traction that we're looking for instead of going back to the beginning again and back to the beginning. So you guys have really become more strategic in how you're doing ministry as you start to look at those processes and procedures that you've put in place. And the larger a church grows, right, the more necessary those things become. So I'm just going to pause there and take a breath. Can I just also say all these things happen one bite at a time? Like this can sound like a lot, like we could never do this. And with the Faith Unleashed process, we literally walk alongside of a congregation to make those things happen, bite by bite, step by step, piece by piece. And Kathy and Marilyn Sievert, who isn't on with us today, have done a wonderful job in working with that. And then Pastor Hein has just been fully behind it and embracing it completely. And that is what transforms a congregation. So got another question for you guys. So Bob first, and then Kath. Where have you seen the greatest growth or change in the ministry at Good Shepherd?
Well, I would say we've multiplied the number of people who are involved. And, I'll just highlight some of the things Kathy said before. Some of this isn't easy. You have to kind of train and encourage and remind people to the blessings of doing the action plan and the review plan. But you realize it later on. I'm sure we all have someone who's been doing a ministry forever, probably doing a good job, but they never wrote it down and then they left. Now what do you do? And we had an example with our special events coordinator to do a church picnic. And I remember, well, would you like to be our special events coordinator? Would you like to do this? We didn't really have, well, how much food do I buy? Who helps? We didn't really have that down very well. And now we've helped her to put that all down. If she would leave and someone else would come, it's all there. We know what to order. We have a starting point of who served in the past. We know what didn't work and what worked better. So it does take a little bit of work up front, but I think our leaders, we're not trying to give them more work to do. We're actually trying to make their life easier. I'm in our ministry cycle right now. We do a fiscal year. All of our appointments are renewed July 1st. A lot of our elections are July 1st. And so we have to go out and we have to get new people. And it's nice to present them, this is what you do, this is how you do it, these are the resources you have. I think it makes it easier for people to accept because they understand there's a plan here. I know what we did last time. Another example, we had to have a special task force. We're doing another building project. We needed people who could be on that task force. It was about financial feasibility. It was very nice from the workshops that Kathy and Marilyn have done. They were able to come and bring us names of people who maybe had those gifts and interests. When we had a nominating committee meeting and we were looking for people with certain skill sets, they were able to give us the names of those people. So I know all of us leaders are always saying, I don't know who to ask. Who should I get? I don't know what they're interested in. I guess what I'm saying is this has helped us to connect the dots and give people a plan so it's easier for them to accept serving because they know what to do.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And we haven't really talked about the Shape to Serve workshop, but that's so foundational, instrumental in getting all that information about who has which gifts and then putting that in your database system, right? That's so key to knowing how to find the right people. So Bob, I'm just going to ask you a follow-up question. Just as you guys have gone through this process, how about staff dynamics? What have you seen change in how your staff functions together?
Well, all of our pastors have gone through this, so I think we know our gifts and our personality traits. We know how we work, and sometimes it's just helpful to understand that we're wired differently. People know that I'm an achiever and I'm a lion, and so I think maybe they understand that about me and how I approach things. But I also need to understand how other people succeed best. So I think it's benefited our team. And I would say, again, I think personally it's helped me just understanding how I can delegate more and how I can hand more things over and more ministry gets done and more gets involved. And I don't have so much on my plate. So that was a big thing we talked about too, is what's on your plate. There are things that I need to do, and those should be my priorities. There are other things that I could do, but they could be handed over to someone else who could do them better, and now involving more people. So I think that's the benefit. And I guess that's also what our goal is.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kath, as you think about where you've seen the greatest growth or change in ministry at Good Shepherd, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I think we have a lot of events, and I think that we're starting to just document them so much better. I think that every time we do an event, it's becoming like more professional, more polished. I think because people are knowing that like there's intention behind what we're doing. We're making sure that we're collecting information afterwards about how it went. Um, some events have had evaluation forms, after, to get information about what people thought about the event so we can help make it better. I think it just helps because a lot of the behind the scenes things are just, there's a system for a lot of it now. So I think it's helping us to just be more like, just to have more success because this is the direction that we're going. This is what we're trying to do. And you're not going back to the same people over and over again, kind of like Pastor Hein was saying. We have ways that we're discovering what members' spiritual gifts are. And then we can kind of talk to them about here are opportunities of how you can be involved here or at home or in your community, because it doesn't just have to be here. Your personal ministry is in any area of your life. So also just helping people think about how they can serve Lord best. And it's exciting to be able to talk and have those conversations with people. I think the Shaped workshop is amazing, but I also think everyone goes through something called a guide session afterwards. You spend about an hour with another member. We have about 4 or 5 people that are trained currently to be guides, that you could meet with after your Shaped workshop. And I think that helps people to get direction on how they're going to use their gifts, use their abilities, use their personality, all those things that they just learned about themselves in an intentional way.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kat. You touched on personal ministry isn't something that just happens at church. And I think that that's so unique to the way we approach faith with the Faith Unleashed system. It's not just about filling slots at church. It's really about discipleship and helping people live out their faith 168 hours a week, right? And so as they discover these things about themselves and just become more conscious of the opportunities to make a kingdom impact, they're more willing to do that. And that's pretty exciting. So thanks for that. Bob, tell me how you've personally changed. You've given us a couple of ideas, but where else have you seen yourself grow through this process as a seasoned pastor?
I guess I just to be able to use more people and delegate more to them and build them up. When I look at this, we did this whole new ministry structure and we were blessed. Everybody wants to have a lot of young people right on their council and they're serving. And that's great. We have a whole new group of people, but they're also a whole new group of people. So how do we train them to be leaders? I see that as my role. This has helped me to help them grow spiritually, to help them grow in leaders. And I guess what I'm sharing with them, I'm learning myself too. I'm going to highlight a little bit of what Kathy said about the workshops. Please don't think this is just a program to get more people to sign up to do stuff at your church, okay? God has blessed every one of us, and really what we want to do is help people understand how richly God has blessed them and uniquely designed them and understand their gifts, and they are going to find joy in who they are. To me, it builds up your Christ esteem of who you are in Christ. And so I guess it helps me remember who I am. It helps our leaders remember who they are, all our members, how we are shaped to serve and privileged. And they may sign up for something at church. That's great. But a lot of them are just finding joy in serving God in every aspect of their life. It might make you a more joyful mother or husband or factory worker, okay? And I guess to me, then it's always getting back to not this pressure of got to get people signed up to do things, but helping people understand how blessed and gifted they are from God. And that's where we always have to keep our focus whenever we're doing stewardship.
Amen. Amen. I love that. So, Kathy, as you think about uh, how you have personally changed through this process, share a little bit about your story and what that's looked like.
Sure. Well, I think, it's unique because I'm a staff member now, right? So you're doing ministry and you're thinking about ministry a lot because you are passionate about what you're doing and excited about it. But also finding a time to have my personal ministry. So one of the things I really love to do is sing. And so getting that opportunity to either sing, whether it's as part of like a small group singing for church or introducing a hymn, or I joined choir for a short period of time before, leading up to Easter. So I would be able to be part of that. And our choir director is flexible about that. You don't have to come every single week. So I think that's the other thing, like get people to think about, I'm a mom, I'm working here, I want to serve my Lord. And that's one way I really love to serve my Lord, but I have to find time to do it. And I have to make sure that I'm intentional about how I'm getting connected to those opportunities. And so I think that's helped me a lot, is just to think about, oh, I love to sing. How am I getting an opportunity to do that? And yet we're a really big congregation. A lot of people get an opportunity to sing, which is awesome. And it's not me all the time, which I love as well, because lots of people are getting an opportunity to serve their Lord in a way that they love. So I think I hope what I'm saying is it helps me look at my best yes, but it also helps me rejoice in other people serving in their best yes.
Yeah, amen. I think that that balance piece, the fact that you touched on, yes, I get to do it, but I'm not the one that has to do it every week, because we've found other people that have the gifts and talents and passion for this. And so I think as leaders in congregations, everybody that's watching this probably really struggles with feeling the pressure to do more. And actually, when you get member ministry going at your congregation, it really allows you to do less better and more focused, more intentionally on what God's gifted you to do, rather than having to be jack of all trades and master of none. So I think that's really interesting.
And I think the flexibility too, like I feel like Good Shepherd has done a good job of, hey, it's okay if you don't come to choir every week, but we'd love to have you back until Easter, or hey, I just think that we're getting really wise about giving people opportunities, but it doesn't have to be these big commitments sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So people are looking for shorter term commitments in our churches. And so thinking about how do we break some of that stuff down so that they can be involved. Maybe they're on part of the Christmas choir or the Easter choir or whatever. That really provides people to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Because for years it was said that if you said yes to serving in the church, it was like you were committed for life, like you could never get out of it. And I think we're realizing, right, that people serve in different areas of their life every season. There's a different opportunity. So whether it's being connected with your church or serving in the community, the real goal there is to let their light shine for Jesus and to point people towards Jesus. So very good. All right. Bob and then Kathy, how have you seen the attitudes and behaviors of your lay leaders change? What do you see them doing differently?
I believe that they are seeing the value of the putting in the time to do the planning, to do the review forms, and now they're starting to reap the benefits of that, because you go around another cycle, it helps. The other thing is, there's a lot of activities going on here. We like to have a planning calendar for the whole year for all the groups. And it's kind of nice. You realize when you plan these events, timing is good. We don't want to plan two major events on the same date. So I just think they're seeing the benefit of advanced planning and review and making the ministry better. I think they're seeing more of that. And I think they're meeting with the groups. We have our boards that meet, but then they bring in one of the coordinators or talk to one of the coordinators and focus specifically on how can we make that ministry better. That's a new role for them.
Yeah, yeah, right. That ownership piece, because a lot of times what we've seen in churches is the pastors or staff ministers are responsible for communicating everything that the ministry leaders are doing. So helping those ministry leaders have, or council and board members have more ownership over those areas of ministry really spreads the workload across. And it's a blessing because those guys get to see and experience what really is going on in those ministries. So, Kathy, anything else that comes to mind for you in regard to how you've seen attitudes and behaviors of your lay leaders change?
It's basically what Pastor Hein just talked about, but they are using rocks tracker to help them look at rocks for 6 years, for 3 years, for one, all of the ways to kind of make sure they're keeping the ministry moving forward and on track. And I think that's been so key to just helping us be focused and this is what our mission is. This is what we're doing. These are the things that are going to help us get somewhere with all these different areas. So I think that's been amazing. They've also just been really supportive of personal member ministry, and allowing us to talk to them, to give them ideas, to help them find names of people that they might be able to invite or ask. Um, I just think they've been really supportive, and I really appreciate all of them.
That's awesome. You know, I used to be a school teacher in my former life, and one of the things that I recognized with church leadership, right, is there's that turnover. And so you have to constantly be thinking about how are we onboarding new leaders, right? And so as you've developed some of these systems, you mentioned Kath, like your 90-day rocks and the strategic planning. And so we have to bring all those leaders along. So, Bob, as you continue to work on further developing your leadership system at Faith Unleashed, we've recently introduced Fuel Your Leadership. Why do you believe equipping your leaders is important? And what are some of the things you've begun doing differently for your leaders because of Faith Unleashed's influence?
It is important that, for called workers, we're stressing continuing education. I'm sure many people, if you're a doctor, nurse, or dentist, continuing education. I think just making it intentional, we're not just, oh, now we got our leader, give them their work to do. No, it's like we want to build up our leaders spiritually and in their skills and in the culture that we want to have here. So we've been trying to plan some leadership retreats. I'd say maybe one in the spring and one in the fall. We focus on some of the key elements of member ministry. Sometimes we brought in a guest speaker. There's always a spiritual component to it. So I guess I'm just saying, make it intentional. Maybe it's a book that we encourage them to read, but just put it on your radar screen. How are we developing our leaders to grow spiritually and in their skills? And we did have some leadership retreats. We actually brought in some other outside people from Wells to help us to set, when you talk about rocks, they're basically just, what are your goals? I'm sure we've all sat around in meetings and we talked about something and we all went home and we said, well, what did we had a nice talk, but where are we going? So I think setting goals and rocks and deadlines and assigning it to somebody, the next meeting that's going to come up again. So if no progress has been made, we want to have meetings with purpose. We want to have action plans. I think we're getting better at doing that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think there's so many things that we can learn from the outside world. But when we think about developing Christian leaders and sending leaders out into our world, I think we should be the experts in that. We should really be the ones that are working hard on how are we training? How are we equipping, right? So that they can carry that to the workplace. My husband used to say he loved going to church meetings because not only was he surrounded by other Christians, he said he learned so many skills at church that helped him be a better leader out in the community. And I think that that's a big part of that whole Faith Unleashed process. It just provides us with a more intentional way of living out our faith. So Kathy and then Bob, why would you tell someone to partner with Faith Unleashed Consulting? What do you think?
Well, I think that it really helped us develop systems for a lot of church, that were probably already there, but just needed to be defined better, and be more intentional. We have more intentional steps, for things like after an event or to prepare for an action plan. It just, I think, has really helped us have more direction.
Great. What about you, Bob? What do you think?
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a system that's out there, a ministry out there that works, that has benefited others. You have opportunities where you can kind of get your feet wet and learn more about it. And I know that Lori will work with you to give you a little sample of it and dig a little bit deeper. But we kind of did the same thing with our building project. I guess I could have done it all by myself, right? Well, why not use the skills of others who are doing it well? They lay out a system that's step by step, because sometimes this stuff can be overwhelming. Just follow one step at a time. And yet it's not set in stone. Large church, small church, you can make a hybrid plan to work for your ministry. I would just say it's been a benefit for us. It's been a benefit for our people, and I think it's worth looking more into if you want to help your people grow in their understanding of how blessed they are, what their gifts are, and connect their gifts to serving in every aspect of your life. And that's number one, is helping the individual, but I think it does help your congregation to connect the dots and be better planners and get more people involved. So we've found blessings, and I think you will too.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bob. As we wrap up here today, I just would say, would you and your leaders like to learn more about Faith Unleashed system for church? If you would, you can join us actually at Good Shepherd for our first conference called the Jethro Project, Maximize the Human Potential in Your Congregation. And that's going to happen on September 7th. That's a Saturday, just a half-day conference. And we would love for you to come and see firsthand some of the amazing things that are happening at Good Shepherd and in other churches that have more intentionally figured out how to engage people in meaningful ministry. Thanks, Bob and Kathy, for being here today.
Have a great day. God's blessings, everyone.